Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show, where we tear the bow off personal growth and talk about what it really takes to build something that matters. Today's guest, Heather Hester, has built an entire movement around courage and compassion. She's the author of Parenting with Pride, founder of Chrysalis Mama, and host of the hit podcast More Human, More Kind. We're about to riff on what happens when your heart breaks open and you build a business by leaning into that space instead of hiding from it. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Indeed. When the polite version says you help parents and allies, what's the unfiltered truth of what you actually do?
The unfiltered truth is that I allow people to be really messy. I encourage people to be really messy. So I don't want people to come in, whether it's in a coaching space, on the podcast, a one-on-one space or a community, whatever it is, whatever the space is, and say, "Oh, I'm fine. I just want to love and protect my child," which we all want to do, right? I mean, I don't think there are many parents or allies out there that are like not. Um, I want to get underneath that. My work is let's get underneath that because every single one of us has stuff. Every single one of us has biases that we may not even realize are there. So I want to get in and just pick all of that apart and go through all of the like let's get uncomfortable, like let's get our, you know, fingers all sticky and messy and because then once you go through all of that, the other side is where like the real magic is, right? Like that's where the relationship is. The real relationships are is on the other side of all of that. So that's that's the skinny.
I like it. If I had to pitch you in 20 seconds on stage, what's the promise I should make on your behalf?
She will give you the tools to repair relationships so that you can have authentic connection with those around you.
That's good. So tell us what you do in 30 seconds or less. That's like what you're doing at a, I don't want to say existential level, at a, what, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's like the high level, right? That's like the draw you in. So what does that really mean, Heather?
yeah,
That's what you're
yeah.
saying? Yeah. What does that really mean? So what do I do? Well, I do. It's funny. I was just working through my new website with my website person this morning, and we were like really pulling things apart, right? Kind of doing exactly this, which is the words say this, but what does that really mean, right? And because I have so many different pieces to my work, I have the podcast, which is to me it's what I've been doing the longest, and it is my love letter to the world. It is something that I do because I love so much, kind of like you, right? Like we do this thing because it is our heart that we're putting out there, and providing information to people, right? To people who need it in whatever wherever they are on whatever journey they're on. And so there's that piece, and then I have coaching that I work one on one with parents. So this call might be, hey, if you're a parent or an ally or somebody at Ally Curious, right, who wants to support whether it's an LGBTQIA plus kid or the greater marginalized community, if you want to just make a shift in your life, right? I will work with you to help you uncover those pieces that are holding you back, right? Those biases that you have. So let's say if it's specifically a parent who has a kid who has just come out, okay, we'll get like really granular. Okay, well, what is it? Like, why was that a shock? Was that a shock? Okay, why was that a shock? What pieces of that being a shock make you feel icky. Like, what about that? Are you like, I just don't like the way I'm feeling. I'm worried. I'm scared. I grew up understanding being gay to mean this. For me specifically, the first thing I had to do when my son came out to me, I loved him up and down, but my immediate first thought was, because of the way I'd grown up, was there's no way that my kid is possibly going to hell, right? Because that's what I had heard. That's what I had been taught. But I knew in that moment that couldn't possibly be true. But why isn't that true? Right? I have to figure out why that isn't true. So that is the work that I started doing. So all of this comes from work that I did on myself, things that I had to unlearn and then learn moving forward, right? Like get the good information, get the accurate truth about whether it's your kid being gay or whatever it happens to be. And then I just turned that into working with other people. And so as I worked with people, it was this couple over here went through X, Y, and Z. So now I'm working with them and I'm doing my research, I'm learning how do we work through that specific piece. Maybe it's that, their child is transitioning and they don't understand that, or their child has come home and said, I'm non-binary. What does that mean? Right. So there's all these different pieces. And then aside from coaching, like another piece that I do is speaking. And I go, whether it's doing workshops or keynotes or, an online virtual lunch and learn. I will come into spaces and speak about allyship. I'll speak about, supporting your LGBTQ kid. I'll speak greater, about like bigger topics like boundaries, why those are important. And just kind of bring my own flavor of the way I approach life into that. So, and then I have my book, of course, like you mentioned in the beginning. So.
Define allies for me really quick.
Sure. An ally is someone who is not a member of the specific community that you are being an ally to, right? So, in um, this specific case of an LGBTQ kid, it's somebody who's not LGBTQ, but it's somebody who wants to support, to understand, to advocate for that community of people. So you can be an ally to, any number of communities, right? You can be an ally to all of those communities. It's just, you don't belong to that community, but you're supportive.
So someone who isn't going to identify as LGBTQ plus, but is like, I feel compelled to support that community. I want to get involved. I want to help. I want to see change. I want to advocate.
Right.
You would support that person who's maybe like, why am I being pulled in this direction? I'm compelled to do it, but help me come to terms with this, or am I off base here?
Right.
Or
No, not at all. I think it's definitely that. Like, I want to understand better. I want to understand more. I don't understand what these terms mean, right? I don't understand why it's harder right now for trans people. I don't understand what it means when my neighbor walks out and says, "Hey, Mr. Jones, just so you know, I'm they, them. I don't understand pronouns, right? But I want to. Like, I'm like, cool, kid. All right, great. What does that mean? Right. So I would be like that person that's like, okay, let's sit down and talk about it in a way that is not kind of my underlying feeling or purpose is for people to be able to have either whether it's a one-on-one conversation with me or in a group and not ever feel for one moment like they're being judged, like they're being should, like they're being um just you're wrong.
they
It's
can be
I
vulnerable. They could be vulnerable
a
and be like,
thousand
hey,
right,
these are
like
my actual thoughts. Can you give me feedback without layering on judgment, for example?
exactly. And I think there are a lot of people that who are in that space of like, well, this is all I've ever known, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable with feeling that way. I just don't know how else. I don't know the answers to these questions that I have. And so I think, that is definitely that's the kind of group of people that that I'm I really want to talk to.
Cool. So quick, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 53.
53 as we record this, October 29, 2025. Changes that you've seen in the last 30 years, and I think even more specifically, there's obviously the pendulum of awareness and support and what am I trying to say here? Stripping out judgment, acceptance, understanding. These are my white guy words,
And
right? You
those
could
are
be like,
good.
"Well, you're way off base here." Um, but you know, changes now in the last 30 years. Obviously, it's getting better, but I feel like maybe tensions have just shifted, or as the pendulum swings towards growth in society, but then we inevitably get some backlash. Like, speak to that for a minute, maybe.
Oh, yes. So you are more on a societal level, right? That's what you're asking. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's, the simplistic answer to that would be yes, things have shifted. I think 30 years ago, we were seeing the kind of discrimination against gay and lesbian people that we are seeing against trans people today, right? And so, the similar misunderstanding and vilifying and all of those words, right? That's what was happening. But I say that with an asterisk because I could have said that with full clarity 2 years ago and would have been like, this is where we are now, right? I feel like right now, on the on this day, on this in this point in time, we are in a space that we've never been before. And I think it's all back on the table, right? So I think, yes, trans people absolutely 1,000% are being vilified and demonized and, discriminated against way more still than gay, lesbian people are. So gender over sexuality, right? But it's all, they're all back on the table now, right? Any marginalized community is now back on the table as a person who is being discriminated against, in some way, is being, singled out as a group, as you are causing the problem in this area. And I don't this could definitely go down the road of really diving into politics here, but I'm trying to keep this more on like a cultural, societal level here. Um,
Yeah.
I, I, I think that's what you're wanting, right? Um,
Absolutely.
okay. So just looking at it as like kind of culturally, I think especially if you were somebody who maybe, isn't a political junkie, which I hands down am. So I try to like keep it locked down these days. But unless I know that I'm in a space that's like, yes, let's talk about that. But I think that you can be a person just who is part of our culture to say and look around and say, wow, things are spicy. Like I see some movement in ways that I have not seen, anger and finger pointing and, blame and the rhetoric is really dangerous. And I think anybody, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, whether you're super tapped in, whether you're not at all, right? Energetically, you feel that. No matter, no matter whether you're listening to things, no matter whether you're going to the grocery store, you're walking around at the mall, whatever it is, you feel it. And you may not know what you're feeling, but that's what you're feeling. Like, I think, using the word spicy is the best word I could use.
It's a good one. I definitely think we're in that two steps forward, one step back moment. on lots of things, as
Yeah.
you said, over and above just discrimination against, LGBTQ plus. There's, you know, the uh, one step back, or perhaps six steps back in a lot of cases. So it's definitely an interesting time right now as people are wanting to reassert themselves or assert themselves at all, or
Right.
and
Well, I think it can feel very, very overwhelming, which it's designed to feel very overwhelming. So I think that, in this time, that it becomes really important to, find what's important to you. Whether it's your family, it's your, you have a passion project, it's your community, whatever it happens to be, and really hone in on the things that you need, they need, it needs, if it's a project, to stay safe, right? To keep moving forward, to be successful, whatever success means. And I think when you kind of pull it in that way, it makes it a little bit easier to be able to say, oh, okay, this is what we need to do. Right. And now I need to find a resource to be able to do that, or resources to be able to do that. So how do I do that? Right. It allows you to kind of make those steps. So it's not just this like, oh my gosh, like the world is on fire. What do I do? Because it's so easy to just be like, hey, I'm just going to crawl in my bed and like put my covers over my head. And, right.
yes, indeed. So you said something very interesting, and you said, uh, when your son, I believe you said it was your son who came out or told you he was gay. You said, "Wait, my kid is going to hell." Well, pre that moment, if you're being taught, you're hearing that unless you're straight, you're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a very church going message. Were you involved with the church a lot, or are you involved in the church? And so you had to like face that, like literally square up, or
That is a fantastic question with a very long answer. Yes, I I grew up I grew up Methodist. However, big asterisk with that. My grandfather was a Church of God minister. And so I was raised more Church of God, which is kind of, more toward Baptist evangelical for those who are not super versed in all the denominations, which I get it. And so I grew up very, very sheltered, very strict. And now what I have come to understand as, it was very fear based, right? So I was the oldest of three kids. I um, was followed the rules of being the oldest, right? I was a very good girl. I followed all the rules. I did all the things I was, supposed to do. And I did that for a long, long time. And it's, I think, when you're able to, the gift of being able to look back on your life and see the points where you're like, wow, that's amazing that I made a shift there, because I had no idea why I was doing that. I just did. And so, I say divine intervention, but I have certainly shifted out of religion, as far as like strictly, a church, being part of a church now in my life. And I have shifted way more to having a relationship, and that there and a spiritual, spiritual guidance, divine guidance, but all of the religious dogma is part of my past story, of my story of growing up. And the number one reason for that, excuse me, is my son coming out. And that was a very defining moment for me to say, wait a second, all of that has felt funny, like all these years, like as I've had kids, because he was 16 at the time, the oldest of four kids. So I'd been parenting along with my husband for a number of years at that point. And we had made some very distinct shifts from the way our parents did things in the way that we were doing things, which I think every parent does, right? But that was a defining moment for both of us to say that that does not work for us, and that I do not believe at all. And so it was in that moment that I was like, well, I need to find out, figure out what the, what is the answer to this question that or this feeling that I have. And then we're going to go from there. So yes, that was it.
So take me back to the moment where the script flipped and what blew up and forced you to build what you teach now. Is that,
Mm.
yeah.
um, I think there was well, everything blew up. First of all, it was not only that him coming out as gay was it was a big deal because we didn't see it coming. He came out in he ran away when my husband and I were out of town, and it was very scary. And I thought something like very tragic had happened to him. So in the moment that he told me on the phone, he was sobbing. It was so scary. It was the middle of the night where we were. And he finally blurted out, Mom, I'm gay. And I was like, thank God, because I thought you were dead. And it really put so many things, like it was so clear to me in that moment. Like I was just, all I was worried about was him being okay, that he was like, I really was, thank God you're alive. Like, okay, you're gay. Awesome. We will figure that out. And I am so sorry that you have been so scared to tell us that. Right. And so then we went into like the next 6 months where all of these things started coming out. Right. So, you'd think that would be like the Band-Aid ripped off moment. It wasn't. It was like literally like the plug that came out of the dam. And it was more like, okay, well, I've known for 3 years and I've been scared to tell you. And this is why I've been scared. And then being, 16 and a boy, all, having a hard time explaining those feelings. So really, really fell into deep depression. So we had a lot of mental health, like severe mental health issues that we had to learn about. So there was like this immediate learning curve, right? There was this, okay, we have to learn, like, how do we support our gay son? Okay, now has some serious depression. Like, how do we support him in his depression? Who do we need what resources do we need? Do we need to talk to? What kind of support does he need? Substance abuse came into the picture very quickly. Apps, online stuff came into the picture. I mean, it was like bam, 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 bam. Like, you talk about learning curve. Like, it was a major, curve is not the word for it. So it was a lot of stuff. And for us, it was like super fast, like unlearning, like, okay, well, this is what we were always thought, right? Like, this is what we were told as children. This is what we brought into adulthood. This is what we've been slowly unlearning. But now we have to do this at like Mach speed. And so it was a ton of unlearning and like just being in the space of like, okay, what does this kid need? And what do our other 4 kids need? Because they clearly know that there's major crisis going on in this house, and we have to support them too. So it was a lot that happened at once. I'm so sorry. Hang on a second. Losing my voice. I think I've lost track of your question a little bit. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. We were talking about the moment of when the script flipped and blew up
Oh,
and you're forced to build what you build now. And
okay. So thank you so much. I knew it was something there. Yes. So I think because that it did flip in that moment, right? Everything became so crystal clear in that moment. And because of then the things that kind of happened one after another over the next 6, 8, 10 months, um I got to a point, like once we got him to a point that was stable and he was doing okay, I was able to take a breath and be like, no other parent or person supporting anyone should have to go through this. Like this was awful. It was terrifying. It was so hard. And I am the type of person that, I get something between my teeth and I have to figure out the answer. Like that's just I that's the way I am.
Yeah.
But I know not everybody's like that, right? So here I had all this incredible information that I had learned and I had figured out and I had found all these resources. And I'm like, well, I need to let other parents know that they're not alone because part of this too, so many parents feel like they're scared to tell people. They're not sure who is safe to talk to. There's shame involved. There's, all these levels of like, I don't know what to say. Can I, my child doesn't want me to talk about it, or my child's telling everyone and I don't know what to do with that either, right? There's a full spectrum of that. So that is why I began creating all of this. And it actually originated as the website, which was just a resource website. And then the podcast came into play and everything just kind of organically came into play from that.
Yeah, people start resonating with your
Yep.
message. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, wait, this is a resource." And it's so interesting because I think we all generally, those of us, let's just say, we would consider ourselves normal in spite of the madness going on. Normal is a relative term, I suppose. But you're thinking on one end, "Hey, I'm a great parent." But then it's like, wait, I thought that channels of communication were open. How did it come to this? Like you were scared to tell me for 3 years. And then, we're thinking, hey, this is no big deal. You're gay. But then it's like, wait, this is a really big deal because there's all these other low-lying implications that I thought I'd be okay with that I don't know how to manage through, or I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
And then also you're thinking, hey, this didn't, yeah, no big deal, but then this didn't go down well, or I'm open-minded, but wait a minute, how do we deal? It's just the mental mayhem that I imagine me on the outside. I'm thinking, yeah, yeah, no big deal. I'm open-minded, you deal with it. And then it's like, wait a minute, there's a whole lot of layers going on here. Um, so to offer that resource is incredible. Um, I had another question, but I learned it. I'll give you the stage again if you want to speak to that again for a second.
Sure, no problem. Yes, I think it is something that you often think all of those things. I'm open-minded. I would be totally fine. And then something like this does happen and it does make you face um kind of your blind spots, right? It makes you face all of the things that you realize you were carrying with you, like all of I call them biases just because that's kind of like the easiest general term to use, and to say that we all have them, because I know that sometimes that word can be seen as like a judgment word, and I don't mean it that way at all. Everybody has biases. That's just, we're humans have biases, and not all biases serve us well. And so that's part of growing as a human being, is taking a look at, well, this may be what I was given as a child and that I brought into adulthood, but does it really serve me well now? Is it, where does this fit into my life, into my value system, into how I want to continue growing as a human being? And so, that does take a little bit of uh, introspection, ability to be introspective, which can be scary, right? So that's just one more level. I mean, if I had to pick one word for all of this, it would be fear. That is the one thing that we have to come up and address, is fear.
Hmm. Who comes to you when their world is on fire and what makes them stay?
Parents. I think parents are my a parent who, and they have come on in all places of the journey. It's, the parent whose child has just come out, and it's parents that their kids have been out for 10, 15 years. Um, and they stay because it's a space, whether it is, through the podcast, through community, or through, one-on-one work. It's a space that they are allowed to be messy, and they are allowed to be really like get into that human place of, this is what's really bothering me, right? And sometimes all you need to do is be able to say that, right? And like process through it, and then you can let it go, and then you can move forward, right? And so there is a lot of that kind of back and forth. And I think that, even listening to the podcast allows that space for one to do that. Of course, if you want my feedback, you got to work with me one-on-one. But I do think that's why it's just it's a unique space that it's not just, I'm not a therapist. I do something very different than therapy. I do bring my own therapy speak into it because I've been in therapy for a long time. So I've learned my own things along the way. But it is not that. It is definitely a place where, it is true coaching and coaching work. Yeah.
I love the idea of allowed to be messy, because I think whenever we're in that internal turmoil and we're battling it, and we're battling it hard, or we think, usually for me, for example, I'm 50 some years old. This shouldn't be bothering. Therefore, I'm not going to put it out there because I shouldn't be bothered by this, or it's things like that, right? Um, Give me the top five. This is what's really bothering me. Things that you hear.
Mm. um, I don't understand it. Fill in the blank with, could be sexuality, could be gender, could be the way that kids date these days. It doesn't matter if they're gay or straight. Um, so that's a big one. Um, I I believe that social media made my kid gay. That's a big one that's been popping up recently that I've been rather fascinated with. Um, oh my gosh, I had one when you first said it and it fell right out of my head. Well, there's it's a choice. I can't get over it's a choice, right? Um, how can we tell so and so? Fill in the blank. I don't know how to tell grandma. I don't know how to tell my brother. I don't, that. Um, there's a lot of variations of what ends up being setting healthy and clear boundaries, which allows for relationships to continue. And I feel this is a whole other tangent I could get off on, but go off on, but that idea of it being so black and white, like they either understand and accept completely or they don't, and we have no relationship. And to get to this place, we don't, and there's no or very little relationship. There's a lot that comes before that. There's a lot of gray in between, and there's so many different ways to set boundaries, encourage conversations, all of those types of things. So I do like to talk with people. I mean, I think that's a big thing that comes up. Oh, I know what it was. The one before that. I had somebody say this to me a few months ago. Well, my child came out and it was not a big deal in our house because we're so accepting. So we really didn't have to do all of this in our house. Okay, well, that's great. That's great. And your child is eventually going to have to go out into the world. And guess what's going to happen out there? The world isn't quite as kind, right? Your child is going to have to learn how to be in the world and have to understand how to, you know, address, handle, face what they're going to come up against. And that's different than what a straight cisgender person has to come up against. So it's just an extra layer of kind of, again, these are all like fear things, right?
Yeah. And boy, sometimes the unwillingness to change or change our viewpoint or, what if I changed my thinking just a little bit? What if I was willing to look at things just a little bit differently? But how we can dig our feet in the sand or our heels in the sand. I thought it was so interesting, it's the black or white statement that you said, where it's like, well, I'm in full acceptance, or, and we're going to have a great relationship, or no, it's done. I'm throwing him out of the house, never talk to me again. And I think in that circumstance, it's almost like that storm was coming between the parent and the child, and it was just happened to be a gender scenario that lit the fuse and exploded the bomb. It's like you're
Right.
in denial if you think that that's just the core problem.
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. That is one of the scenarios that, honestly, in that case, I have worked with more kids than I have the parent. I don't understand. I will be very, very transparent on that. I don't understand a parent that throws their child out. Um, your child, right? So that to me is they're like kind of areas where I think, well, that's kind of past what I do. There are people out there who would be fantastic if that parent would be willing to work with them. They're a great therapist for that. That is not right. I just and there is so much gray in there, and I think I I think on a broader scale, like talking about this on in a more broad sense, as human beings, I think we're, to some degree, we are wired to want things to be black and white, right? To have that boxed check and to be like, that's what I am, or this is what I see, or this is what I believe. And when we ask ourselves or suggest that perhaps it's just this big spectrum of so many ways we can show up in the world, right? That our belief systems can be this whole big, beautiful spectrum of beliefs. It's not 5 different things that you can choose from, right? And if you choose one, you don't believe the other 4, right? And I think this is what I like to talk about. Like, this is what I just have people even begin to like think about it in this way of like, oh my gosh, it's just a shifting of the way that you're thinking, right? It's a shifting of the way that you're seeing other humans. So you're not looking out in the world like, I am right, and this is the only right way to be, and everybody else out there is wrong, right? And so I think when you are able to be like, well, I mean, I really like the way that I am, but perhaps I can learn something from this person, because boy, is that a cool point of view, right? And I wonder why they made that decision. That is really interesting. And it doesn't mean you agree with everyone. It means that there's like this space, like it opens up a space. So I think of that like in the parent child relationship, and I think about that in like the greater family relationship, right? So, you know oftentimes when you're looking at, like, I think about specific story, my relationship with my parents and my sibling, and how that has panned out over time. And I think that definitely has informed the way that I have shifted, right? And the way that I have chosen to view humanity. And And I just find it interesting, right? It's one of those things I'm like, huh.
Do you, I just have to ask this. I was just thinking, the people that are most extreme in their aversion to to the LGBTQ plus lifestyle or whatever. Sorry, not to say lifestyle, but you know what I mean. The to that have the most bottled up closet sexual issues of their own.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I have my own suspicions, let's just say that. And I can go through like both sides of my family, like cousins, aunts, uncles, second cousins, third cousins, and be like, yep, yep, yep. Like now knowing everything that I know and just like being like, it's also part of this is like opening your eyes, right? Like you're kind of like rubbing the all the sand out of your eyes and sand out of your brain and being like, oh wow, like this is like this great big world of all of these like gorgeous colors. Well, as before it was like there's black or white, right? And now it's like it's mind blowing. And so I look around and I think, well, isn't that? I mean, I made a comment like a couple of months ago about, I'm not sure why he got married because he's definitely gay. And both of my parents looked at me and they were like, oh. And I was like, well, there's nothing, clearly there's nothing wrong with it. I just find it curious, that's his journey. Okay. That's fine. But it was like fell out of my mouth and like the response was so funny. Like, okay.
It's good. Thank you for riffing on that for a second. What kind of parent isn't ready for you yet?
The parent who isn't ready to take accountability, to be able to see their own shadows, to be able to say, I'm sorry, to be able to say, I'm curious. And all of that stems from it's the parent who is just still so completely afraid, who is bound by whether it's their belief system, their religion, their politics, their any combination of the above, right? I mean, it could be like people in their lives that they are just so, whether it's fearful of or connected with, but in a way that is a very unhealthy connection, um, they just can't see past that yet, and that fear is greater.
Mm. They've got some things to come to terms with, perhaps
Yeah,
before they give you a call.
yeah,
Perhaps they should listen to your podcast first.
a thousand
In
percent. That's why it's there.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's scarier to your clients, changing language or changing identity?
Do you mean language as in um like learning the language of like LGBTQIA plus like that? Or
Absolutely. Or even how they speak about things. It's like
okay.
languaging around it
Oh
too,
my
right?
gosh.
There's
Okay. Yes. Wow. All right. So ask that question again.
okay. What's scarier to your clients, changing language or languaging or
Mhm.
changing identity? So they're either going to need to be like, I got to change my language, how I talk about this, not only with my child, but speak to society, you
Right.
know, or it's
Right.
like coming to terms with, oh my gosh, my identity. I mean, we've spoken to that a lot. Like, you've got to
Whew.
be willing to stare some things in the face.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, I think they kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean, I feel like they're kind of steps, right? I feel like the languaging is perhaps, I mean, not the first step, but it's like one of like in that, and then identity is like, Like, let's say languaging is, level 201 and identity is level 401. We're talking like college levels. Um, but it is what I think that it's probably more scary, identity. I think that languaging might feel a little more manageable because it's like little bits at a time, right? Like shifting smaller shifts. Mm-hmm.
Mm. I had a question, but I just lost it all of a sudden. I'm sorry.
I do it all the time.
Okay.
Don't you hate that? And you're like, oh, it's so there. Yeah.
So tell us a comeback story that gives you chills of somebody that worked with you or a family that worked with you or an ally or child or go ahead.
Oh my goodness. There's lots of good ones. Okay. There was a client that I had a couple of years ago whose son had come out. She was a single parent, and he was about later teens at the time and was really, really struggling. And she was struggling with how to communicate with him. And he ended up going to live with his father, and because she just was really having a tough time. And we worked together for over a year. Probably, talked like every, 4 to 6 weeks. And it was a really, really fun thing to watch. I think one of the more fun things were the questions that she would come with each time. And kind of what we would puzzle through, and the times that, like, in between then, like, they would meet up and they would have, a conversation. And he would, at one point he was dating someone. At another point, he had gone off to live, um, he must have been close to college age because he had gone to college in LA, and he was hanging out in West Hollywood. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this. And there was a lot of like the scariness, but it was like this fun watching, kind of like the step by step, like her, like being like ripping off the band-aid each time, right, and coming with these like really thoughtful questions. So really being willing to be vulnerable, which I think is a big piece of this. And and then ultimately he ended up coming back and like and splitting time between the two of them. So it was such a cool, and that age is a tough age, whether, just being gay adds another layer to being a teenager is so hard. And so there were a lot of just like, and for a mom to understand what a teen boy and a teen gay boy needs and wants and is curious about is super hard. And so it was a fun story though, and we still talk every 6 7 months or so. It's really, really fun. So yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Uh, I love that, and I like the vulnerability and the growth, that trajectory. I imagine she can go into West Hollywood and hang out there and have fun and sip some coffee with her son, where before she'd have been scared to death. And she's probably completely unaware of that psychic change, you know?
Totally.
Anybody watching, listening, who's relating to this or is thinking, "Man, I've got a situation that I need to talk to someone about or learn more about," you can go to More Human, More Kind podcast, the More Human, More Kind podcast and YouTube channel, and of course, you can get Heather's book, Parenting with Pride. It's on Amazon. It will be in the show notes. Um, I'm imagining in your work, you've had a client, whether that's a person or a family, where it was utter chaos, but then it became calm. Like it was utter chaos, like perhaps in everybody's head, this is an unmanageable situation. And then you had now it's a beautiful family, kind of like what you just described, but maybe even more extreme. Yes or no, you've had that kind of a situation?
Yes. Yes.
So I want you to tell me about it, but I want to know, and relatively quickly, because I have some fun questions I want to get to, but I want to know what was the first domino that allowed that transformation to take place in that extreme situation. Does that make sense?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a great question. I think that the first domino really, and it's consistently, is um, being able to face what it is you're afraid of. What is that? What is that that's keeping me from getting to, whether it's the support my child needs, the support I need, um, being able to ask the right questions. So it's being able to kind of face that fear and being like, okay, I can walk through this.
Mm,
It's not going to get the best of me. I can do this. So it's a, you know, it's some hand holding. I mean, it's some like taking deep breaths together and being like, you've got this. And there are so many people around you that you don't even realize that, have your back. So,
yeah.
yeah.
What's a word you've banned from your vocabulary?
Oh my gosh. Um, should.
Love that. That's a good one. Give me a couple of examples.
Um, any time that I find myself saying, I should do this, or I should be saying this, or I should be whatever, should I don't should on yourself. That is like shame in a word is what that is.
It's good. What's one boundary that saved your sanity?
Whew. How detailed do you want? I mean, how personal do you want?
As deep as you're willing to go. We're ready.
Okay.
Our audience, my
All
audience
right.
loves this. Let's
Well, here
go.
you go. Um, the one that has saved my sanity the most is realizing that I could be in situationship with my parents, that I can choose when I speak to them and when I don't speak to them, that I don't have to cut them off just because they don't support my children, but
Mm.
that realizing that I've always been the one that has carried the relationship so that when I stop talking, nobody steps in to talk has been very clarifying for me, because then I've been able to say, well, I can kind of direct this. Like, this is a great boundary right here.
I
Mhm.
love that. What belief did you torch this year?
That's a great question. Oh my goodness. This year has felt like it's been like 2,000 years long. Um, mm, mm, mm. You're gonna have to cut out this long pause here. What?
It's okay. I love it because it gives the listeners an opportunity to be like, "Oh my gosh, what
What
belief should
belief?
I be torching this year?"
Right?
Maybe
I
that's
mean,
a better question.
I'm thinking about so many that I've torched in the past 8 years, but I think that um okay, this is gonna be a really funny, like weird one, and maybe not so totally on topic, but I will tell you, I torched the belief that I couldn't, just because how you say I can't because, right? I can't do this because. Well, why not? For forever I've been saying I can't go back and do yoga in a studio because I don't have time to do that. Really? I have time. I want to do that. I'm going to go do that. Why am I not doing that? Right? I can't have, I can't go down and spend a weekend with my parents because then they will think everything that they have ever done or said in the past, 6, 8, 10 years is okay. No, they won't. Just go do it. Yeah, there's two extreme examples for that. I can't because there we go. That's
I
my
love that. That's good.
mm.
When was the last time you had to eat your own advice?
Oh wow. Um, Goodness gracious. Oh, I feel like I was either being interviewed or I'm like having this flash. It was probably in the next last month or something. And I had made, and I cannot remember, it's probably not the greatest answer because I can't remember exactly the statement I had made at the beginning of the interview or the conversation. And it was with somebody I didn't know very well, but they called me out on it because I contradicted it at the end. And they called me out on it, and it made me stop and think for a minute. And what I realized was that I wasn't contradicting myself, but I like had a different way I was thinking about it. And so I had to like clarify what I was saying. But I did definitely like the person had no problem like calling me out, which was great, as one should. And it did also make me think like, oh, I've got to be more careful about how I say things, right? Like how I am explaining my thoughts on different topics.
Yeah, that's good. It's so clear to me these days that I think I'm saying one thing and people are hearing something else.
Mhm.
And I see that in play all the time. I'll be watching someone saying this over here, and this person is hearing something completely different or what they want to hear. Like as humans, we hear what we want to hear, you
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
so it's so important for us to be very, I don't know if succinct is the right word, but as you just said, be more careful in how we say it or frame it or ask follow-up questions. Can you repeat what I just said to you so we can make sure we're on the
Right.
same page, you
Right.
know?
Well, and I think one more thing with that, and I'm learning to do this, I'm not very good at it, is that sometimes being direct is the most kind thing we can do. A lot of times, especially when we're talking about more complex or difficult topics, we use a lot more words than we need to. And that's where everything gets convoluted and people perhaps hear different than what we mean.
Yeah. Earlier you talked about when your son came out in that sort of messy few months where it was like, oh, I thought him telling me that he was gay was like that was the catalyst, but no, that was the easy part. There was the next little bit. If you had your current courage back then, what would you have done differently?
Oh my goodness. Um, I would have asked a lot more questions. I would have really dug deep in there with him right away to find out what was going on. I was really afraid of what I was going to find out, and had been had continued to operate as though nothing had happened, as though he hadn't just told me something very big about himself, and as though the wheels weren't falling off the bus. And I had just been like, okay, everything's going to be fine. We're going to keep, instead of facing what I knew in my body, right? I felt it. My intuition was like on fire for like 6 months because it was like, hello, pay attention. Um, but had I, followed that and been like, hey, what does this mean? I would like to know how, what this means, or what are you thinking about, whatever it happened to be at the moment in time, to like be able to, you know, just not necessarily bypass, but perhaps have prevented him having to go through as much pain as he went through.
I love that. That is beautiful. Ask more questions with an open mind to listen.
Yes. Oh
It's
my God.
beautiful.
So big. Like hearing what they have to say. Yes.
Mm. Quick, 30 seconds or less. Everything you do now, what is one key takeaway that any entrepreneur could apply to their entrepreneurial journey?
Mm. You know what the next right step is. Don't doubt yourself.
That is about as short and sweet as you can get.
There it is.
Oh my gosh, Heather, that is amazing. All right, I want to be cognizant of time. I know we are backing you up against the wall, and the next podcast host who you have to talk to is like going to be going, "Where is Heather?" So, where do you want listeners to start if they're ready to stop pretending they're fine? Point them to your first step: site, book, one killer episode. Where do you want people to go?
Oh my goodness. Go to two places. Go to the podcast, start at the beginning. Start with episode 1. That is the best place to start because that is all of like the 101 and it goes from there. If you want to work with me directly, morehumanmorekind.com. You can go on there and it has a form that you can fill out to connect with me.
Amazing. So good. Heather, that's a wrap on the Table Rush Talk Show. Massive thanks to you for coming on, being vulnerable, uh, proving compassion has teeth. If anybody watching, listening, if this hits you, share it, tag someone who needs it, and then go set one boundary today that frees you up to lead better tomorrow. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.